Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Gut Wrench Podcast. I'm your host, Mocha. Let me try that one again. I'm your host, Mocha, take two. I'm your host, Mocha. That's better. Alright, put that one in the final cut. What do you mean you're not going to edit this? Well, I'm not going to edit it. That's what I pay you for. Listen, just stop, okay? Before I throw you out of my room, and for that matter, out of my life, okay? Because I've had about enough of you people walking into my life and then saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm half Jewish. Of course I can write you a good joke." That was me sneezing. Oh, shoot. For those of you who didn't get that joke, that was a Family Guy reference. So Stewie, for whatever reason, he's playing the trumpet or the one of those horned instruments. I think it's the French horn or the trumpet or something, and he ends up blowing into the French horn so hard that he farts. He farts. What am I, British now? And whenever he farts, he looks at the class, who seem to just scoot their chairs back, and then he says, "Yes, that was me farting." So it's hilarious. Today, well, okay, so here's the story. So a little bit of a story time before we get started here. So I looked and tried to scour the internet for pretty much one or another. I tried to find any and every every good R-Truth match that I could find, but it is extremely hard to find someone like R-Truth who hasn't had really a bunch of matches. And he really hasn't had his opportunity at the WWE Championship, and we'll talk about that in a moment, I suppose you could say. But he's never really had a championship match of the caliber of like having the WWE Championship match. R-Truth wasn't even ranked within the top 500, if I remember correctly. I don't remember seeing his name anywhere on the top 500 list, and I looked through all of them. Maybe it's because he hasn't wrestled this year, or whatever it is, or he hasn't wrestled enough, rather. Haven't seen enough of him. Maybe I should check the top 500 from this year. Ladies and gentlemen, the name of this pay-per-view, the name of this event, they make it extremely clear that it takes place on Father's Day. They make it extremely freaking clear that they're at the nation's capital, because they don't shut up about those two things right there. You're lucky, rather. I didn't put up a Father's Day counter and a the Washington D.C. counter, so that I could count the number of times that they say Washington D.C. and then count the number of times that they say not the coughing noise, but count the number of times that they say Washington, D.C., and count the number of Father's Day references that they end up making. And yes, there will be some dad jokes on Father's Day. Open of the show. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta I got like a phlegm in my throat and I can't get rid of it. The open of the show shows a crazed look in R-Truth's face as echoes in the background say, "You've went off the deep end," in John Cena's voice. So, usually WWE opens their pay-per-views with something like, "Tonight, a new champion," and then it'll like zoom in on all the competitors who are vying for that title, will be crowned, and then it'll show the current champion, and you'll see like a whole bunch of highlights from the past weeks, the pending weeks rather. And then it'll show like what happened, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, to get us to this point. And that's kind of what you get here. You get R-Truth, who is, by the way, at his best. Ron Truth Killings, at his absolute best. Because this right here is how you make someone look strong, look good. And for that matter, as a heel, look very, very convincing for the gimmick that he came up with, or for that matter that they came up with him, that they came up for him, if they did. I mean, I don't know who's responsible for the gimmick. The reason that we're talking about R-Truth is because last week I was looking through my Twitter feed, and by the way, my Twitter is back, but that I basically had to make a new one. So follow me on Twitter at P1_B, as in the second letter in the alphabet, P1_BBAY. So I had to change it a little bit, but the premise is the same. And this year for Halloween, I'm going as Malachi Black. So I'll be doing a few vignettes, maybe. I'll see where my editing skills take me, because I have paid for an editing software through May 2023. So we'll see exactly what it is that I can come up with, and stay tuned for my Twitter and my Instagram. It will also be on my Instagram, despite the fact that some of my family is on my Instagram, and I would prefer that they not know that I have a podcast where I sometimes talk about my mom, because I know that I'll never hear the end of that. Anyway, had that been the case, R-Truth is really strong here, and he looks extremely good here. But we get this, just R-Truth says there's a conspiracy. Look around you. He says little Jimmy is all around you. John Cena's there. John Cena says there is no conspiracy. R-Truth says, isn't it ironic that we're in the birthplace of the propaganda and scandal? And of course it gives you like, it shows you like JFK in the motorcade as he's walking down the, not walking, but driving down the Texas school book depository, and it shows like the footage of like Reagan hugging some woman, and Marilyn Monroe, I think her name is, bringing President John F. Kennedy some cake. That whole scandal. Happy birthday to you, because he was having an affair with Marilyn Monroe. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Nonetheless, if I don't stop singing that song, then I'm probably going to get sued by Warner Brothers, and that's a story for another time. For another time is what I mean to say, not another Tom. whoever Tom is. We open the contest. Our opening contest rather is for the United States Championship. They bring up the fact that Dolph Ziggler has 82 pins in his college wrestling career, which was a record at the time, and it probably still is. As Dolph Ziggler, the challenger for the United States Championship, faces off against the champion, Kofi Kingston. And straight out the gate, they talk about scandal and stuff of that nature. Ziggler has a non-title victory over Kofi, and that's how it landed him in this match right here. And the commentary team won't shut up about certain things, and one of those things is the fact that R-Truth thinks that there's a conspiracy theory against him, when there is no conspiracy. R-Truth is just crazy. I swear, he's went off the deep end, just like John Cena said earlier. There can't be a conspiracy against R-Truth. What do you guys think? Anyway, what they end up doing is, I gave this match 4 out of 5 stars, and the ending of it is really, really good, because Dolph Ziggler keeps hitting these big moves, with Vicky Guerrero getting involved. At one point, she rakes Kofi Kingston in the eye while the referee's not looking. Referee turns around and gets to see about 0.8 of a second of, it's almost like if you were to watch it frame by frame, the referee just turning around, and then Vicky almost immediately putting her hands down, like having her hands in Kofi's eyes. And then she was like, "What? I wasn't doing anything." And then the referee's like, you kids. Talk about Vicky. Okay. So, the commentary team talk about Vicky. She says she looks great after being on a diet, but Jerry Lawler says she should go on a hunger strike. And Jerry Lawler also says if Vicky was a building in Washington, D.C., she would be condemned. Holy crap. He's a little bit of a savage here, if you will. These are things I feel like he should tweet to her. But nonetheless, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And you want to talk about scandal? Vicky literally raked this man's eyes. We saw a new United States champion in Dolph Ziggler. R-Truth gets out of a limo, and Josh Matthews gets invited to a big party. R-Truth is going to attempt. He tries to talk to Eve Torres, who says that, "Truth, I don't even know who you are anymore." And then he makes it extremely clear that you don't know who I am anymore. I don't know who you are anymore. He's like trying to basically call her a skank. I guess you could say. He says, "Get out of my face." Ain't nobody know who I am anymore. He walks away talking to himself. This is what I mean. R-Truth, every opportunity that the camera's in front of him, he's all the time like his mouth is moving and no words are coming out. I wish I could show you guys right now exactly what it is that he's saying, or not what he's saying, but like how his mouth moves and then his eyes go up and down, and it almost looks like that he's some sort of paranoid, Somebody trying to come and get me. Who's that? In that wig? He's just, every time that the camera comes to him, he's always like, he plays it so well. asking The Miz about Alex Riley. An interview with Todd Gresham where Todd Gresham asking The Miz about Alex Riley, A-Rod. Miz says that Alex is nothing more than a bag carrying loser. Miz says that Alex Riley is an embarrassment and a failure. So the match itself and the story that led up to it was basically like The Miz and Alex Riley, and it was one almost like the whole Daniel Bryan Miz story, except I feel as though that they did this one a lot better, because the fact that The Miz really plays his part really good, and he just honestly shines so well every time that he's on camera. He's like, I'm the victim. I'm the guy who would have been WWE champion had it not been for that lackey, Alex Riley, had he not done what he did, and instead of stepping out of line and knowing his place, he decided it was a good idea to attack me. And what did The Miz do? The Miz shoved his palm in Alex's face and then basically said, "You're nobody. You're nothing without me." Which, okay, sure. You're the victim, Miz. You're the man who didn't ask for this, right? That's why you're getting your ass kicked. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So already the name of the event, in case I don't remember saying it, is Capital Punishment 2011. Which they only had one Capital Punishment, if I remember correctly. Miz versus Alex Riley, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And Michael Cole put his foot in his mouth. He gets up out of the commentary's desk, out of the commentary's table, and then he's basically admonishing Alex Riley, telling Riley what a disappointment he is. He's like, this man has been your mentor. He's been like a father figure to you. And you're going to... No, wait, please. Your problem is with The Miz, not with me. And then A-Rod ends up like just decking Michael Cole right in the face. So then we get our first, like I said, there will be dad jokes. I guess you could say this is our first dad joke of the evening. Hopefully it's the last one. But the first thing that we get is this unintentional recap of what happened 2 weeks ago on Monday Night Raw from this point, I suppose you could say. And the reason that I call it unintentional, rather, is because it seems so poorly set up. So we get this Barack Obama impersonator. Yes, we are in our nation's capital. They make that abundantly clear. Yes, the name of the event is called Capital Punishment. Yes, it is Father's Day. So, they ask this make-believe Barack Obama, who looks like Barack Obama if he went on a crack binge for 2 years, if a Mexican hits a giant with his car, both the giant and the Mexican are covered by Obamacare. I feel like the Mexican who hit the giant with the car would need insurance. He wouldn't need Obamacare. But okay. I guess Obamacare now is competing with Geico and Progressive and Allstate and everything else that this podcast is not sponsored by the way. This podcast is not sponsored by Obamacare, nor Geico, nor Progressive, nor Allstate, or for that matter, State Farm or anywhere else. Anyway, back to the task at hand. Both the Giant and the Mexican are covered by Obamacare. So then Vicky Guerrero comes by and she's got something to say. So as she's walking past, she says, "Excuse me." I said, "Excuse me." And Dolph Ziggler walks by, of course, flanked by Vicky Guerrero, and Vicky ends up basically... And here's one of those dad jokes I was telling you about. Getting up in Barack Obama's face, and she gets carried away by the security guards, and someone says, "Very sorry about..." Oh yeah, it's Sergeant Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter says, "Very sorry about that, Mr. President." I suppose you could say Vicky got carried away, because she literally got carried away by putting her hands on the president, for one, and for two, she got carried away by the security. So there you go. There's your double entendre dad joke. Okay. Now, earlier I asked you guys a hypothetical question. If a Mexican hits a Giant with his car, are both of them covered by... I can't. Both of them are covered by Obamacare. Okay. As we see our next match, Alberto Del Rio versus The Big Show. Mark Henry comes down to the ring before the match begins, or a little bit after the match begins, rather, because the bell's already rung, even though Michael Cole states that the bell hasn't rung. The bell rang whenever Alberto came out honking his horn to that vehicle that he had, some sort of Ferrari. Nonetheless, what we end up getting treated to is the fact that Alberto Del Rio pretty much gets a pass on this whole entire match, because Mark Henry comes out, puts the Big Show through a table due to actions that happened 3 or 4 weeks ago. The referee refuses to count to 10 to count the Big Show out, because I guess that wasn't the schedule that they were planning on doing. It was kind of like, "Hey, I need you to get into the ring. Hey, Show, are you good to go? Hey, Big Show, are you okay?" And then he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Just let me get up. Yeah, I'm fine." And then he's on one knee for like all of 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 14 minutes. Almost the entirety of this match revolves around the Big Show trying to get to his feet, as Alberto Del Rio tries to take him down. And this was a really slow-paced match where the Big Show couldn't defend himself, according to what the referee said. And it wasn't fun to watch at all. Because apparently the Big Show got hit by a car 2 weeks ago, and for that matter, he pissed off Mark Henry, who put him through a table. He really made a lot of mistakes here within the last 7 or 8 days. Now, Del Rio claims that hitting the Big Show with his Ferrari was an accident, despite the fact that whenever it happened, they showed the clip from 2 weeks ago, before this event, and Del Rio literally comes up to the Big Show, who's minding his own business, slaps him in the face, and then afterwards runs like a coward, gets inside said vehicle, and then proceeds to run him over, and then afterwards flee the scene. So I'm pretty sure it wasn't an accident, unless unless you don't speak English that well. And in Mexico, an accident means that you meant to do it, which I would highly doubt is the case. So then we go to R-Truth, who, for whatever reason, has a photographer, and he's about to give him the business. You know, he's about to punch him right square in the nose. And then he says, "So, you here to take my picture?" And he said, I can't do that, Truth." He said, "You haven't won WWE Championship." And he says, "So you mean to tell me that you're not going to take my picture?" Well, we'll see how the championship match goes, you know. Well, if you don't know John Cena, if you don't know, R-Truth had stole John Cena's championship, and the photographer didn't want to take his picture because of the nameplate. The nameplate always has the champion's name on it, and R-Truth had stolen John Cena's championship, and it still had John Cena's nameplate on it. And then he says, R-Truth looks at this man, and then he says something about, "I'm over here talking about taking pictures, and you're talking about nameplates?" He's got him by his neck. And he's like, "I'm about to kill you." Wade Barrett comes out to let everyone know how not so great America is. Keep in mind, it is Father's Day. Keep in mind that we are at the nation's capital, and the name of the event is Capital Punishment. We've already had one vignette from, I wouldn't say vignette, but more or less like, you know, Barack Obama talking, where Vicky Guerrero got, quote, carried away. How not so great America is, saying in 10 years we will all be speaking Chinese. Now, this was in 2011, so in 10 years, wouldn't that be 2021? And apparently there is no CORE. So CORE was a group that Wade Barrett, I'm sorry, Wade Barrett did not run the CORE. He ran the Nexus. The CORE had no leader, if I remember correctly. Wade Barrett, who is the Intercontinental Champion, versus Ezekiel Jackson. And because Wade Barrett made fun of the United States of America, saying that you want to know what makes the U.S. so piss poor, basically, is what Wade Barrett says. He says there's no queen. Of course, because he's from, you know, the other part of British. I can't think of the name of the place. I'm sorry. He's from Europe. Somewhere in Europe. The UK. And now I'm getting closer. You know, but what part of the UK? You know, please tell me. Is he from Manchester, England? Okay, England. There we go. I just see, it took me a minute. He's either from like Manchester or I know that he's not from London. Tea-sipping bastard. But anyway, Wade Barrett, our Intercontinental Champion, goes up against Ezekiel Jackson, who is from South America, I think. I'm not sure what part of South America. But Ezekiel Jackson versus Wade Barrett, and halfway through the match, because Wade Barrett chose to make fun of America and say that America sucks, basically, we get USA chants, despite none of the participants in the match being from the USA. So I'm not sure who they're chanting for. Nonetheless, I would assume that they're chanting for Ezekiel Jackson, seeing as though that the one person who made fun of America is Wade Barrett. And we do see a new Intercontinental Champion. So that's 2 titles thus far that have changed hands. And there are 4 championship matches in this event right here. Wade Barrett ends up losing the Intercontinental Championship. And then we get our next, I suppose you could call it, dad joke. I wouldn't really call it a dad joke per se, but I mean it's kind of funny, sorta. So they're shooting the breeze with the president. And I gave that last match 3 out of 5 stars. So they're shooting the breeze with the president, and yes, I am putting that in air quotes. Santino, as Santino Marella to the president, he ends up looking at him and then saying, "Do you want to see my cobra?" What? So anyway, whenever Santino says that, what he means is that he has this finishing maneuver that for whatever reason he kind of just jabs people almost like with an open claw. I don't get it either. But anyway, he tries to show it to the president, and the people playing the Secret Service all of a sudden tackle him because they think that he's going to attack the president with the cobra. He says he's got a snake, and then he just starts tackling him, and then he goes, "No, it's my finishing maneuver. It's my finishing maneuver." And Santino always has been this comic relief, if you will. I swear, it's hilarious. And then we go to CM Punk, who's getting interviewed by Josh Matthews, and Punk says Rey is a liar. And Punk never really specifies what Rey Mysterio is lying about, except for being a hero, maybe, because he does mention the fact that Rey Mysterio wants everyone to believe that he's a hero, when the fact is that he's hiding behind the mask, and it's a facade. But other than that, CM Punk's rambles really don't make much sense whenever he goes out to basically say something along the lines of, it's just not very amusing to hear someone say something like, "Oh, you're a liar, and you've been lying this entire time because you've been wearing a mask." Now, I have a note here that tells me to basically talk about lucha culture, because Michael Cole, in his infinite wisdom, color commentary, ladies and gentlemen, ends up saying Rey is hiding behind a mask. So, for those of you who aren't aware, I'm not really sure where it started. I'm not really sure how it started. It could be Spanish conquistadors. It could have been before the Spanish conquistadors. It could have been the Aztecs. It could have been the Romans in the Colosseum. Could have been before the Romans. It could have been the cavemen. I don't know. One thing that I do know, though, is that in a setting, like a lucha wrestling setting, that mask is something known as your pride. That is something that you take to your grave. You never allow someone to unmask you. You never allow someone to tamper with your mask. I'm not really sure where the passion for the mask is, in lucha wrestling, in their culture, but I can respect it. Respect the mask. And Michael Cole is not a good look for him to come out and say something along the lines of, he's hiding behind the facade that is the mask, and I'm 100% with CM Punk. As CM Punk faces off against Rey Mysterio. Also, here's a flex by Michael Cole. He says, reminder that I am undefeated at WrestleMania. CM Punk's father raised him straight edge. Okay, so I watched a mini documentary about CM Punk. And in that mini documentary, so they talk about how it's Father's Day, and they talk about the morals of CM Punk and what drives him. Michael Cole makes a huge mistake here. He says that CM Punk's father raised him to be straight edge, and that's not entirely true. If you know what I know, you know that CM Punk was at a Little League game. He said in an interview one time that it really shaped his future to not drink, to not smoke, to not do drugs, because he never wanted to end up like his father, who was a drunk. And much like I said earlier in this program, I don't want my mom to find my podcast because I talk about her a lot. And she unfortunately is a drug addict, or at least she was. Not really sure what her drug of choice is. I've heard a lot from a lot of people in my family. Xanaxes, Klonopins, Roxy 40s, Roxy 20s, Roxy 80s. I'm not really sure what all these pills are. I don't know if she snorts Viagra. It doesn't matter. It's not important. And for that matter, Michael Cole is really uneducated whenever it comes to certain things, that he needs to get his facts straight before he goes and says stuff that later gets contradicted by other stuff that you would see on WWE media or other television outlets. CM Punk had a DVD that was briefly sold in stores and online, and not only that, but they've also ran the I don't know if it's still on the WWE Network or, for that matter, Peacock. The WWE side of Peacock, I would imagine not, seeing as though there is no contract holding WWE's media to CM Punk's media. But one thing that they did have was a mini documentary about CM Punk, where he was talking to the camera about why he chose to be straight edge. As CM Punk faces off against Rey Mysterio, and honestly, this match was a great story. So I gave it the 5 out of 5. Because they just told a great story. I don't know how else to say it. CM Punk's such a great bad guy. World Championship match as... Is that the last one? Okay. Then we go to the World Championship match as Randy Orton, the champion, faces off against Christian, the challenger. So there really was no story here other than the fact that Christian felt as though that he was wronged against Orton in previous wrestling matches, or for that matter, previous competitions, previous contests. Christian is done. Christian is done listening to the fans, and he talks in the first person rather. The Rock comes out. Usually he'll start talking like, "Now the Rock says," or Steve Austin sometimes will come out and then he'll say something along the lines of, "Stone Cold Steve Austin thinks." Well, that's exactly what Christian does, kind of. He says, Christian is done listening to all of you. Of course, pointing out to the fans and then saying how much Christian has been listening to you for far too long, as if Christian is a different person. Whenever The Rock does it, he makes it seem like he's talking about himself referring to himself, not as Dwayne thinks that there are people in the audience who don't care about him. You know, like, of course, his first name being Dwayne. It'd be like if I went, you know, decided it was a good idea to be like, and then Mocha gave this match 6 out of 16 stars. And then Mocha turned the page on his wrestling journal here. And then Mocha wiped his nose, and then Mocha coughed. To further exaggerate how mad Mocha was, he then took a sip of iced tea, which he had sitting beside of him, beside of his laptop. I'm sorry, beside of Mocha's laptop. You know, this is something that Christian did. Basically, in order to, I guess, further invoke a reaction from the crowd, or maybe he thought it would be a good touch. He's like, you know what? Steve Austin used to do that, and so did The Rock, so I might want to start doing that in order to put myself over. Well, it only works if you know exactly how to portray it, you know? Randy Orton versus Christian, as Christian says he deserves a title shot, plays an underdog, the only person who believes in him is himself. Really, there's no story here aside from the fact that Randy Orton's got a concussion, and if Randy Orton gets hit in the head too many times, this almost seems like a video game QTE, quick time event, that it was almost like every time that Christian would punch Randy in the head, that they would go, oh my goodness, Randy just had his brain scrambled again. Oh, well, he doesn't know where he's at right now. You know, commentary. They're always going through these motions wherever they're like, oh, look at him. His eyes are all glazed over like a couple of donuts, you know. It's like, wait, what? He just punched him in the head. Calm down, man. This is not a UFC fight. I get the fact that they're trying to sell the injury, you know. But what I don't really get is the fact as to why they're trying to sell the injury. Like, what makes it relevant to the match at hand here? Also, Michael Cole gets a scoop slam mixed up with a power slam. So, usually whenever Randy Orton goes beast mode, if you will, he goes ham on his opponents. He does a myriad of moves, and one of those moves happens to be a power slam off of the Irish Whip. And as he does the Irish Whip, he goes into the power slam, and Michael Cole calls it a scoop slam. Michael Cole, you should have had a V8. No story driven to the match so far. Won the title, but then he lost it 5 days later, and he blames the people for that because the people voted him to face off against Randy Orton instead of someone else. Just, I want a title, so I get a title, is what it seems like that they just ran with. Christian's foot under the bottom rope for the... You remember where, at the beginning of this program, where we talked about Scandal? Well, that makes Scandal number 2, I suppose you could say. Because the first Scandal was whenever Vicky Guerrero, for whatever reason, decided that it was a good idea to rake the eyes of Kofi Kingston and cost him the championship match. So we already seen 2 titles change hands, and Randy is the first one to retain his championship. Then we get what is billed as a bonus match. as Jack Swagger faces off against Evan Airborne. Hang on 1 second. I gotta burp. Nope. Don't gotta burp. Okay. Thanks to you, Cole, I didn't get a call from my son on Father's Day. Now, I really don't know what this means, but Jerry Lawler ends up saying something along the lines of, thanks to you, Cole, I didn't get a call from my son on Father's Day. Which, as I've stated before, they're drilling it into your mind right now. Just pop, 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 almost like a nail with, a mallet. For whatever reason, thanks to Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler didn't get a call from his son, which, if you don't know, Jerry Lawler's son is Grandmaster Sexay, who used to be a part of a tag team. Oh man, I forget. Like, in the early 90s, they were known as Too Hot and Too Cool, but later on, they would evolve from Too Hot and Too Cool, and they would... Brian Christopher, I think, is his name, but he would end up being Grandmaster Sexay whenever they would have a short stint with Rikishi. But I forget the name of the team for whatever reason that evades me. For whatever reason, I can't remember the name of the team that they were. Okay, so I made a note here to talk about Matt Sydal and Jake Hager. So that's basically what this bonus match is. It's Jack Swagger versus Evan Bourne. And Matt Sydal, I've seen him before in other companies, but for whatever reason, whenever you come to WWE, doesn't matter whether you're from Ring of Honor, whether you're from... Usually they'll make you change in a way or one way or another. They'll really have you, we like certain parts of your persona, but we don't like this, and then they'll tweak it a little bit, they'll tell you what they like and what they don't like, or what they feel as though that other people won't like. And yes, I'm putting won't like in quotation marks because it's subjective, really. A wide majority of people would just prefer it, and it does seem a little bit more authentic if you just be yourself. That's what I've come to learn as well, is that if as long as I'm portraying myself, then it's going to come off as a lot more authentic, as a radio personality, if you will, if that's what you want to call me. I don't really know what exactly it is that what am I doing with my life? I don't know. I'm just making it up as I go. But what I mean to say is the fact that it comes off a lot more authentic. It's not forced. It's almost like slicing bread. You can slice bread, and the best thing since sliced bread, if you think about it, is you being yourself and being authentic. You just can't come up to people and make friends like I'm trying to do right now. Relate to people whenever you're trying to be someone that you're not. I can act like I'm a South African prince, but it doesn't mean that I'm a South African prince, But anyway, and that's exactly what the kind of vibe that I get whenever I see people like Evan Bourne, who is just the WWE persona of Matt Sydal. If they would just let him be Matt Sydal, then it's almost like Evan Bourne is a shorter version of Matt Sydal, because whenever he goes over to Impact Wrestling, he's somewhat taller, I don't know if it's the hair. I don't know if it's the fact that he acts a little bit different, and he does. And then once he comes from Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, all these other places, he's not Evan Bourne, he's Matt Sydal. And he's so good as the Matt Sydal character. And Jake Hager, Jack Swagger, it's a beautiful transformation. Jack Swagger had a lisp. Jack Swagger, Jake Hager doesn't have any of that, and Jake Hager is, I don't know whether or not this is true or not, but they claim that he's undefeated in mixed martial arts, holds a record of 13 knockouts and 0 losses. So I don't know whether or not that's true or not, but, in a wrestling persona, maybe it is. So afterwards, after we get this bonus match, we get Obama, who comes out. And yes, I did put Obama in air quotes, or rather, quotations. Who comes out and he says, R-Truth is like Joe Biden, or R-Truth is like the Joe Biden of WWE. I can't understand what he's saying, but he's a hoot. So, R-Truth is like the Joe Biden of WWE. And this was in 2011. I didn't even know that Joe Biden was a candidate in 2011. But, okay. And he also says, shout out to Teddy Long, who's like a combination of George W. Bush and myself. Because he's either doing something wrong or nothing at all. And he says exactly what I'm going to say right now. Who's ready for the main event? Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. No, it's not time to get pregnant. No, it's not time for Sunday Night Football. Holy crap, why would you say that? Why would you say that? Hang on one second, I gotta correct something. Sorry about that. I had to put somebody's head in a toilet and flush it because alrighty then. It turns out that my light's not going to be working for the rest of this review. So I'm going to have to steal this candle for a second. Who's ready for the main event? I am. Okay, and Booker T brings, before Barack Obama leaves, Booker T grabs a microphone and basically says, hey, homie. He keeps saying homie, and then he says, sorry, Mr. President. And then he ends up basically getting in the ring with the President of the United States. And he ends up basically trying to ask the President to a dance-off, and he does somewhat of a dance-off. They do dance off. Booker T back in the day, back in like 2001, used to come out different times and he would say something like that he wants to give these people what they came to see, something like that. And what did they come to see, you might be asking? Well, it was obviously the Spinaroonie, which was like his go-to move that he would always do while they played his music after. It's kind of like a celebration. He would do it after he wins some sort of title. or something of that nature. And now, you remember earlier in the program where I said that we are in the, for whatever reason, the home of scandal. Well, I said that. It's basically like saying it is scandal, whole bunch of propaganda. Well, R-Truth seems to think that there is a conspiracy against him. For whatever reason, he looks at the crowd and all he sees is a whole bunch of little Jimmies, which he refers to as John Cena fans. Little Jimmies. R-Truth is a victim of a company-wide conspiracy. For 10 years, I came out here to this ring, he says, laughing, rapping, dancing, and smiling. And where did it get me? He says, it got me nowhere fast. No golden goose eggs for R-Truth. He says, nothing but goose eggs. R-Truth is really a gem of a superstar, and this is exactly why I wanted to look at this. This is exactly why I wanted to talk about this, because as I said earlier in the program, I couldn't go 5 minutes last week, 10 minutes, let alone 15 minutes, without seeing a tweet, someone saying something kind, something nice, or something really, heartwarming to R-Truth. There's people on Twitter who says stuff like, nobody hates this man, and that is awesome. If I can prove that nobody hates this man. Hell, I thought nobody hated Johnny Gargano until I got the unfortunate pleasure of meeting one kid named Alex who apparently hates him online. And I'm like, how can you hate Johnny Gargano? Johnny Wrestling is so good, How can you hate this man? You must be jealous or something. He's like, no, I ain't jealous. And then, of course, I get told, well, I didn't think that I'd meet anybody who hated Kevin Owens until I met you. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, whatever. R-Truth ain't got no golden goose eggs. He's getting nothing but goose eggs. And now I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Years later, Sami Zayn would try to duplicate this same gimmick, the whole company-wide conspiracy. For whatever reason, he had a camera crew follow him around and make a documentary, but every time that I seen Sami Zayn doing Sami Zayn things, even though technically it was R-Truth who did it first, once again ripping someone else's gimmick off because 1, he's not original, 2, he's a clown, 3, he's got no talent, 4, need I say more? Yes, if I must say more, then allow it. I'm sure he smells bad. 5, he doesn't shave his beard. 6, he's got no talent in the wrestling ring. If I was to go with someone scary for Halloween, it would be Sami Zayn, because no one would want to be around me, because as soon as I put on the mask, I would probably turn into a bumbling retard. Anyway, aside from all that, Sami Zayn doesn't really attach himself to this gimmick. Like I was saying earlier, you can tell whenever something's genuine. Like right now, I'm giving Sami Zayn a scolding. I'm basically roasting this man. And it's genuine. I didn't write any of this down. I didn't have to think about insults beforehand, because I already know what to say about the subject at hand whenever someone tries to ask me about it, so that I'll have it, on a go-go, instead of being like, oh, hang on, let me pull out this sheet of paper that I have in my back pocket that I keep just for people like you. And of course, the point of this is not to roast Sami Zayn, but rather I didn't want to mention him. Really. I don't want to have to say the word Sami Zayn again. Let alone Kevin Owens. But I seem to have to recollect this because it's Zayn's fault. Because he's the one who decided it was a good idea to try this gimmick, even though he can't pull it off. To save his life, R-Truth is a fry short of a Happy Meal, is also what they said about AJ Lee. So AJ Lee also played the crazy gimmick, and she did it so well. She did it so good. Every time that she was on camera, there was always something wrong, or something that goes wrong, rather. And even her best friend at the time, Caitlyn, ended up saying, "Well, AJ, you're acting a little..." And then AJ looks straight at Caitlyn and then says, "Were you about to say crazy?" And then every time that someone would say that word, CM Punk wore this t-shirt that says, "I dig crazy chicks." Oh, you guys know exactly what it is. If you haven't seen the AJ Lee thing, oh my god, it's so good. Oh my god, it's so good. She's so talented. A range of acting skills, if you will. Jerry Lawler was in the WWE for 18 years before getting his first championship match. And Cole says, so Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler and Booker T, they end up talking about their pasts and talking about how crazy R-Truth is for whatever reason. And for whatever reason, they go through Booker T's past history and they find out, wait a minute, Booker, didn't you used to walk around and call yourself a king? And then he looks to like his left and his right, and then he says, "I'm surrounded by kings," because of course there's Jerry the King Lawler, and then there's King Booker. He used to come out and say, "Silence my loyal subjects," or whatever he used to say. My loyal servants. Either they were servants or they were subjects, and I forget which one that they were, but I suppose that's not the point right now. R-Truth puts on a fantastic performance, by the way. It is amazing to see this man work, not just with his character work, everything that he does, down to the very whole gimmick and everything. The match ends so abruptly, like you would never guess when this match ends, but it's whenever R-Truth decides that it's a good idea to go outside, catch a little bit of a breather as he's got John Cena on the ropes, so to speak, and he throws John Cena out of the ring. He goes outside the ring, and there's a kid with a full cup of water. And he sees that the cup of water has John Cena on it. He decides it's a good idea to take that kid's hat off of his head. He's wearing the John Cena hat now. And then R-Truth takes a big gulp of that kid's big gulp cup. And whenever R-Truth gives the kid back his big gulp cup, the kid throws the water in R-Truth's face. And all of a sudden, John Cena just comes from no man's land, because he was outside the ring as the referee was starting to count to 10. And John Cena throws R-Truth back into the ring and then hits him with the AA, and then 1, 2, 3, ding, ding, ding. Here's your winner and still champion, John Cena. And it made me laugh so hard because I'd never seen a wrestling match end like that. So The commentary team was laughing. They were like, well, R-Truth was hoping to get a breather, but instead he ended up getting all wet. Because, of course, this kid just threw his water on R-Truth. R-Truth didn't ask for that. R-Truth now, I would imagine, more than anything, he thinks that little Jimmy was out to get him this entire time. Because that's exactly what it is. He just comes out talking about little Jimmy. He's one fry short of a Happy Meal, they said. God dang it, man, I swear. This has been fun, everyone. And looking back at R-Truth, like I said, I couldn't go 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour without seeing these people just hashtag R-Truth, hashtag oh my god, he's so good. R-Truth is just because of what happened on NXT, because he's apparently the 24/7 champion or something like that. And R-Truth is just, God, he's just so good. There's nothing that this man can't do. If he was to play a psychopath in a movie, then they would find the right role if they was to choose R-Truth. Just everything about R-Truth. And I gave this match 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was that damn good. And I would have gave it 5 out of 5 stars had it would have been either a little bit longer, or it would have had... You know how they were talking about Scandal earlier? Like, isn't it ironic that we are in the birthplace of Scandal? And then, as I stated, they showed like Bill Clinton, I think it was, or Reagan, whoever it was, hugging some woman. I don't really get that one. Or the motorcade before, John F. Kennedy gets his head blown off. They were showing all these, past presidential, like the happy birthday, Mr. President. Once again, John F. Kennedy had an affair with Marilyn Monroe. I keep having to stop myself from saying Manson because, I still can't tell whether Marilyn Manson is a man or a woman, but nonetheless, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and stop it right there because I guess I've been rambling for far too long, but, little Jimmy's in my room and the grease about to hit the pan, Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Where'd that pen go? God dang it. It's a conspiracy. They took my pen. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me this week as I'm losing my voice. For joining me this week for another episode of the Gut Wrench Podcast. And by the way, before we go any further, I just want to reiterate something. My Twitter is P1_BBAY. And I just want to reiterate something else, too. I forgot what I was going to say. I just hate it when that happens. Because now I'm going to have to wait until next week before I remember what it is that I was going to say. That wasn't about... Okay. Thank you all so much for joining me. That's a wrap. Everybody have... Good night, everybody.